Now, Washington Mornings on the Mall. At AM 630. WMAL.
8:07 on WMAL, the place where Washington comes to talk. I'm Brian Wilson. He's Brian Neiman. And this is Brian and Brian in the morning. We're joined now by Congressman John MICA from the great state of Florida. He serves on the House Oversight Committee, and he's chairman of the House Transportation Committee. Congressman, good to have you with us.
Good to be with you. Good, beautiful morning in Washington. Not too good for the taxpayers, though.
Well, yeah, there is that. And not good for people who are pretty upset about this GSA thing. Well, I guess that's taxpayers. We see now that some people are taking the fifth. We have a lot of questions about this.
Some of them were drinking the fifth in Las Vegas.
Or at least wine, that's for sure.
The guy in the bathtub, the hot tub, that's over the top. But it's only sort of, one little glimpse of what's going on with some of these federal agencies, unfortunately.
And that's my question. And we found out about this one, $800,000 for this junket, this big
stay
gathering.
Tuned. Today we'll have a whole bunch more of them. This is just the tip of the iceberg, the wasteful spending. I chose Mr. Denham, who's going to do a great job today. He was a star in the California legislature. Chose him as the chairman of the Public Building Subcommittee that oversees public buildings. And his first assignment was, before he came, we published a report called "The Federal Government Must Stop Sitting on Its Assets." I ask everybody to look it up on our website. It's on our website, the House Transportation Committee. And just look at it. It was published before we took the majority. And we focus on the waste of not millions with these conventions and their administrative costs and outrageous expenditures, but the loss of billions of dollars. This is the federal government's landlord. But read the report. It's entitled "The Federal Government Must Stop Sitting on Its Assets." And one of the prime offenders, the prime offender we lead with is GSA. So they finally got in the public spotlight, and unfortunately people are missing the mark at the billions that they're also wasting.
Well, you just hinted that we're going to have some rather bombshell information dropped on us today. Give us a little preview of what we're likely to hear.
Well, Mr. Denham is going to focus on that Las Vegas is only one of the trips. We revealed last week the intern trip, and he'll talk about a number of others. I mean, that was only one regional conference, and the intern conference. So we've got much more to reveal in the hearing, and it's been very difficult. They have stonewalled us, Mr. Denham and I, since February when we took over the committee. We have had requests almost monthly, and every time we've hauled them before us. The first hearing we did down in a vacant building 2 blocks from the White House that's been the annex to the post office that's been vacant for 15 years, costing about $6 million a year to maintain vacant property. And then a couple weeks before this story broke, Denham and I held a hearing in a vacant, it's called the Cotton Annex. I think it's 89,000 square foot building, just a couple more blocks from the White House, that's been sitting there vacant for 5 years. This is an incompetent agency and wasting taxpayer money, not by the millions, but by the billions.
Do we need the GSA still today?
Denham and I had a conversation last night. We're both from the private sector.
Right.
We think that the private sector could take this over. Now, I got to ask you guys a question,
sure.
Brian and Brian, or whoever is listening. Would you turn over your property to the federal government to manage?
No.
I don't think so.
Or government. And they have think of this. We're the largest property owner and an asset owner in the world. We have 14,000 buildings that are either vacant or properties that are underutilized.
Right.
And we've done in the last year, we did 2 at the old post office and the annex. And we finally, after A year later, we announced the second hearing because they hadn't done anything on trying to get the $6 million a year loss off the books and get property that's very valuable, again, 2 blocks from the White House, being utilized.
Well, but the GSA does more than just manage assets, obviously. I mean, there's the GSA schedule that a lot of people are familiar with as well. But those are things that I guess could be thrown into other agencies if need be.
Yeah, that's true. And there could be, I think the federal government could get a lot better deals. But I think what you have to do is look at some of the private sector practices that we could adopt. I mean, you can't privatize everything, but my goodness, property management. One of the solutions we came up with, since they'd never make a decision on this vacant property, again costing billions and losses, is to have a BRAC-like commission. We actually passed legislation sitting somewhere in the bowels of the Senate, or whatever happens in the bowels of the Senate. But we've been after this agency since the day we took office in February, and now this conference has shed some light on again, but it's just the tip of the iceberg.
Well, I keep wondering though, if we have these many empty buildings and we have land all over the country, the government, the U.S. government is the largest landholder in America,
in the world.
Do we really need all that land? Wouldn't it be, if we want to pay off some of our debt? How about selling off some of this stuff?
How about taking buildings like the one downtown, which we did do, and we were after them. Actually, we announced another hearing a year later. The first hearing we did, it was 32 degrees outside, so we hauled them inside. We set up tables, made them put their coats on. So, in fact, some of the people who were going to be witnesses today came to that hearing. And then we tried to get information on them, tried to get them to move on that building. A year later, we called a hearing in February, and about 5 days before we convened the hearing, they did finally award to one of 6 contenders who has a proposal that will probably hire 1,000 people and probably will have about $6 million in revenue instead of $6 million in losses.
There you go.
I think if you repeated that, I got Denham and I joke, we got 13,998 more to go.
All right, last question before I let you go. Is this conference phenomenon just focused on the GSA, or is this a problem throughout the federal government where we're having exotic conferences?
It's very hard to get information. They stonewall us. We've been asking information.
Well, I thought the administration wanted to crack down on wasteful spending. Why can't they demand this out of their cabinet secretaries?
Well, we're going to have a whistleblower who actually worked for our committee before, and thank goodness she was in there, or this would still be covered up. But you've got TSA, another one that I've been after. 4,000 bureaucrats in the Washington, D.C. area making on average $104,000, spending billions of dollars a year. Their training programs, an absolute fiasco. They've spent $1 billion on that, spent more money training people that aren't there than they have employed.
It's amazing. Congressman MICA, it's great to have you on the program. Thanks very much for your time.
Good to be with you.